inability of Nigerian state to realize its cherished goals and vision has basically been attributed to the nature of economic governance in the country. Nigerians face significant economic governance challenges that include corruption, weak institutions, and inefficient public spending, which hinder sustainable development and poverty reduction. These issues are exacerbated by factors like political instability, inadequate infrastructure, and ineffective regulatory framework. The ultimate goal of development is the improvement of the quality of life of the majority of the people. A lot of national development strategies have been initiated by Nigerian state in the forms of economic governance at one time or another. But these strategies, some of which succeeded and some in other countries, have failed to work out for us in Nigeria. Today on the show, we are poised to discuss economic governance challenges of governance in Nigeria and how can we address these economic governance challenges in Nigeria. What strategy can we really bring or deploy so that we can unlock the potentials for sustainable development and improve the lives of citizens in Nigeria? Joining me on the show today is Idrees Mahmud Gana, lead consultant at ScholarSphere Global Network, a NGO situated in Bida, Niger State. And when we say Niger State, yes, you can see the recent flooding and other, environmental issues that arose in Niger State recently. So we are taking a clue on economic governance and how we can address some of the issues as fallout. A very good day to you, Mr. Gana.
Good day to you, sir. Good day, good afternoon.
All right. So let's get down to the discussion segment. First and foremost, what is your assessment of Nigerian economic environment?
Actually, thank you for the question. Actually, if we look at the Nigerian economic development, we can see it is facing a lot of challenges because according to the statistical index of African Development Bank, we could see that they said Nigeria is facing a financial gap of $31.5 billion, which has hindered the ability of the country to meet the SDG goal of 2030. And if you look at it, even look at the inflation rate or inflation and exchange rate, we can see that Nigerian inflation rate has remained very high because based on the statistics given by them, we can see that the inflation rate is still at 34.8%. And despite although where the monetary tightening is still expected to reduce down to below 26%. Actually, if you are looking at the scale, the large scale of Nigeria economy, you can still see that despite the resources and the effort by the government, Nigeria is still facing a lot of issues that will hinder its development growth or economic development growth. Thanks, sir.
All right. Now, talking about economic governance, someone like you is a scholar, a researcher, should be able to help us understand when we say economic governance, what does it relate to in particular? So help us to break this down for our viewers to understand economic governance.
Okay, when we are talking about economic governance, we are just talking about the system. This is usually regarded as the system or policies or institutions through which economic authority is exercised. That is economic governance that are just like system, policies, and institutions that the economic activities or the economic authority is exercised in their hand. They are the one that carry out the policy. They are the one that come out with the policies. Come up with about the law that will make a policies maybe towards the economic growth or maybe towards the development in the society. So it's just like a system, a policy, or even an institution itself. It cannot just be a system or policy. There must be institution in which they regulate or maybe implement those policies. So economic governance deal with that because the power or the authority has been situated in their hand. If you look at this, for instance, you can see the CBN is starting with some responsibility. If you take a look at Ministry of Finance and we have some other institutions that are being regulated and different parts of within the different parts of the country.
Exactly. Now let's take a look at some of the issues that have been put forward when it comes to economic governance in Nigeria. For instance, in your own understanding, what are those factors that are limited or are limiting governance performance in Nigeria? Factors that are limiting governance performance in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you, sir. There are a lot of factors, but I will focus on 4 factors. The number one factor we know as is weak institution framework. Weak institution framework. And when I'm talking about weak institution framework, these are usually the institutions are are very weak enough. Sometimes the law can be there, but you can see the institution have no the capacity to implement the law. Or even though the law is being implemented, you can see there is no evaluation or even monitoring of such framework of the law. The second one is issue of corruption. Every day, day in, day out, we keep talking about corruption in the country. The rise about corruption. For instance, based on the global index, that is Human Development Index, the Nigeria is still ranked at 154, the most corrupted nation. And if you look at that, the Nigerian government is making efforts in curbing corruption, but despite doing so, the corruption is still persistent in the country, and this has eroded the public trust. Because you're seeing a lot of people now, when you even talk about that, they say that one, they expect more than that from the government. So corruption is still one of the factors that hinder the government performance. Apart from that corruption, there are issues of inefficiency of public finance management, financial management or administration. Inefficiency of public finance. Sometimes the finance is there, but the administering of such finances in the country, sometimes they allocate. Let me give you an example. I think this week there was the report from the FAC, that is Federation Account Allocation Committee. They said Nigeria will realize 1.81 trillion from various revenue and so what have you. Now my question is, this money are going to be shared by the government, but now are the government really going to work with it? What will the federal level make account with that finance? What will they do with it? Look at the state level. How can they account for this money? What will they use the money for? That should be our questions. Look at the local government level. How these finances, what will they do with it? What are they doing with it? So it's called for questions. And to tell you that there are still corruption in there is still inefficiency in public finance administration. Once the money is being allocated, sometimes to keep accounts of that fund became major problem. Also, number 4 is issue of infrastructure and human capital development. Infrastructure, when you are talking about the infrastructure aspect, we can see that a lot, up to now we see like infrastructures in many places. Why infrastructure and human capital is going on, I will be taking two key human sectors. The first one I'll be taking is aspect of education. We can see how the education has been under funding. Schools, even here in FCT, you see there was schools that the teacher went on strike because they have not been paid their wages, the amount of money that they earn has not been paid. And you can see even now, ASU are preparing for their next meeting. And I can see prospect in these people. They are likely going to be a call for next movement of maybe ASU strike. Because these people are not satisfied. The economy, the education system is nothing to talk about. Then let's go about issue of health. Presently, the nurses and health midwifery staffs are on strike. Government hospitals, no staff. A patient will go, the doctor will send them out. I even heard about the experience of learned about one patient who was operated, but the day he was operated, the second day they went on strike. Then they have to send the nurses out of the hospitals. All these issues, if you look at it, it's also a factor that is hindering the government performance in the country.
Exactly. Now, having said so much in terms of the challenges or factors that are limiting government economic governance in Nigeria, let's now take up some of the policy of the government currently. For instance, the CBN that you mentioned earlier is retaining the interest rate at 27%, and a lot of Nigerians, a section of Nigerians applauded them, but some sections were like, no, they should still bring it down. But what's your take? Your take on that, on the interest rate at 27%?
Actually, the government retaining that policy at the 27%. This policy, it is aimed at bringing combating inflation and stabilizing the economy. However, the effectiveness of this policy, it depends on the impact. That it depends on the impact and the high interest rate that it's going to cause. Because I will be frank with you. when you are talking about the rate at the moment, the rate of the policy is good, but it's also look at the other side because it can help to control the inflation aspect of the country. But if you are looking at the other side, this will affect or rises lending costs. This can have short the rising cost of the borrowing of the country. And that's why if you look at now, Nigeria borrowing has reached a peak of 134.3 trillion that the country is owing. So bringing it down at 27, it's not a bad idea. And people saying they should bring it down more. Also, it's okay and it's not a bad idea. But mind the government, the more it do so, the more also it will lead to the rise in the cost of what? In the cost of lending money, of borrowing money, which we know the effects, the debt that public debt has on the country economy.
Very interesting. But let's take a look at food security aspect of the government policy in the aspect of economic governance. In recent time, we have seen the government launching 2,000 tractors, millions of fertilizer being distributed, and a lot of seedling for farmers. But in your take, has this really helped us to shape and to bring about the policy understanding of economic governance of the current government as you speak? Because there's no way we can talk about government policy without talking about agriculture. But what's your take on all the government have been doing in the aspect of economic governance via agriculture?
Okay, thank you for that question. Actually, when we are talking about agricultural policies, seriously, to be frank, government need to prioritize agricultural development to reduce its dependence on oil revenue. And it will because it's only when the government come about economic diversification that the country is going to prosper. But if you look at it now, despite all those loans, local funding supports, and even the provision of fertilizers, you can still see that based on the statistical being derived, we can see Nigerian is still agricultural grew at 0.7% in the first quarter 2025. This tell you the ratio, the issue of food insecurity will lead to food insecurity, not food security, because now today people cannot go to their farm. And why is the reason that people cannot go to their farm? Some of the community, let's take in the north for instance, they have been bothered with issue of insecurity. People go to their farm, they have been bothered with health power. Even things that doesn't happen in places like North Central, particularly let me take the zones, like Kwara State for instance. We see in the news for the past last 1 month to 2 months, Kwara North, particularly state like A2, which is comprises of Lafiagi, Taragi, Chonga, and particular local government in Kwara State are experiencing a new emergence of insecurity called Mahmudawa. Why am I saying of issue of this? If this is still happening, this zone are a zone whereby their dominant activities are agricultural inclined. If these people can no longer go to farm and they are being bothered by the insecurity, despite government spending on loan or everything, you will not eat the result of agricultural productive, or there will not be boost in the production of the agricultural activities.
Very interesting. So, Mr. Gana, let's take a look at another very critical aspect of the economic governance. Just yesterday, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed the Nigerian Insurance Industrial Act 2025 into law. And one of the reasons why the president signed this law is that he wants to ensure that we target a $1 trillion economy by 2030. But the gains of insurance industry, according to the government, is here. But what is your take on this new law that will be signed to have insurance penetrate all Nigerian economic sector? But what is your take on that?
And I can say in aspect of that Nigerian Insurance Industry Act of 2025 signed by the president, it is a good move because this will be a positive step towards the development of the insurance industry. Not why I'm saying this is because this act, if it is well managed and the implementation is effective, it will bring about increase in insurance penetrations, and it will also provide finance protection not just for the individual, but also for the businesses. And this will get at economic growth. If you look at it, you can see the government has even tried, because there are also about 75 billion intervention fund for MSME that the government has provided. You understand? And not just that, it also provided those small medium businesses clinic, which they are gearing to boost the local enterprise. So I could appreciate the government on that aspect of that initiative. But the issue is not the signing of the implementation. It's the signing of the bill. It is the implementation and maintenance of such bill that matters a lot.
Exactly. I will take that from you, but let's quickly begin to suggest recommendation for the government in this regard, because economic governance is quite very vital in any country system of either politics, economy, market, or whatever. Because at this point in time, we need to provide solutions. I'm talking about strategy to address some of the economic governance challenges that we identify. So from your own end, let's begin to provide solutions. First and foremost, what will be your advice to state government on the economic governance policies? Because we can see a lot of federal level economic policies, but when it comes to state level, we may have some issues with some of them, because most of them at this point in time, maybe because of communication, we don't get to read them in newspaper or get to read them on their social media account. But what is your advice to subnational government, state and local government on economic governance policies going forward in Nigeria?
Thank you for that. Number one, we start with governance structure. Where we get it wrong at the state level is some of the structure are not inclusive. The structures are not inclusive, and you see some structure like transparency and accountability. So for them to get it right, they must start with the structure, the governance structure. We need to enhance the governance structure of the state and the local level. It is only from that angle we can be able to talk on other issues. And the other issue that we may also likely to want to talk about is we are keep talking about federal government. There are certain things that state government can do. Let's say we are talking about issue of health, and we're talking about issue of education. There are schools that recently we see how a local government fund was used to improve or to renovate a primary school in Lagos State. Then now, my question is, what are other states doing? Just a local government fund was used to renovate school. That means even the local government and the state level can even help the government taking care of issues like maybe issue of education and issue of maybe health issues. Because there are many things that the government can be do, and that's why we have three lists. We have the concurrent list, we have the residual list, and we have the exclusive list. Concurrent lists are issues that the state government can take care on. Maybe even issue of local security. You can be able to strengthen, because even security, we need to provide security. The state government can have a local security, maybe empower or find a way they can train the local vigilantes, and they will now find a way which they will call bring this local security with the main security agencies to strengthen the security of the state or even the local distance. Not just that, there is also need for economic diversification. Some of our states will say that they are waiting for federal government allocated resources, whereby mind you, there are some states that are blessed with some resources that there are numerous in which they can.
Cool. We have a network freeze there, but I know Mr. Gana is still, putting out his thought there so that we can understand some of the solutions that he provides. First is that we need to look at the structure of our governance at the state level. Most of us have talked about that.
Explore. Once they even start to explore them, not just a federal government fund, they can do this one locally.
Now, Mr. Gana, okay, don't worry. Let me just continue. But let me ask you this part of the question that I was trying to put forward before. Now, food is very important in Nigeria, and not just in Nigeria. Yes. Food is very key. Currently, our food inflation is over 30%. But in your own understanding, yes, having examined the challenge of insecurity, how can we tackle our food security problem in Nigeria?
is still number one. The only way we can tackle our food security in Nigeria is, number one, it is only with security can solve our problem. Because other people are not willing to farm. A lot of people have farming business, but they cannot go to farm. Why? Issue of insecurity. And it is not just about issue of security. The second issue is, up till now, we are not practicing a modernized farming, mechanized farming. But I appreciate the effort of the government, because now we see the deal that the government is working with the Brazil. The government is trying to work on the issue of a bill with a Brazil, Nigerian Brazil deal on mechanized drive. That is on agricultural material. Because now, if we take at insight, there are some areas that the rain falls.
All right, we just hope that network can really give us a break so that we can have a more neat, smooth conversation with Mr. Gana over there all the way from Bida. But from what he's been saying, and the last question I'll push towards is, tackling food security is very key at this point in time. What are the ways out? And he's citing some of the examples of what the government is doing, particularly for security, and there are deals with foreign countries like Brazil to ensure that we also practice mechanized farming. And he also appreciated the government that the 2,000 tractors have been shared so far across the country is really making a deal. But beyond that, we also need to experience something that can also talk about the basic challenges of food security in Nigeria. Some research has come out to say that the problem of technical know-how is also a problem for the over 40.2 million household farmers in Nigeria. They don't have storage facilities, they don't have the kit for farming, they hardly have the best of seedling when it comes to the time they want to plant their crop of their seedling or whatever they want to do in terms of farming. And they also have the issue of, security has always been a major one. But the aspect of storage facilities and access to the farm, as well as access to market, is another issue that many researchers in the corridor of agriculture has really pointed out. I could recall when I had Professor Idrees, also another Professor Idrees, all the way from University of Ibadan. He made mention of extension services, the knowledge of extension services that our farmers need to have. Majority of them don't have access to such education. And Mr. Gana is back. Mr. Gana, you are here. Okay. Continue with your thoughts, sir.
Yes, my network gets lost.
All right, we understand that, sir.
Okay, where we were talking about the issue of food security, right?
No, we are talking about how to tackle the food security challenge in Nigeria.
Okay, I said number one, we still need to strengthen our security agencies, because it only when there is provision of security that our local farmers can go to farm and farm. If they can't farm, how can we even boost our production process? So we still need to talk about security, because it's been faced with issue of insecurity. People they have been taken by the bandits or by the kidnappers for ransom. Yeah. So this thing is discouraging them, and we will not have result.
Mr. Gana, I really want to appreciate you for coming on the show today. With your submission that are quite laudable and quite impressive when it comes to solutions to economic governance in Nigeria. I appreciate you for coming all the way from Bida, and very interesting topic we have discussed with you, and your submission is laudable. Thank you so much for coming, sir.